I was reading yesterday, and it was like,
the disease of being busy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was it talking about? Like, what was it in regards to?
Well, like, you're not making enough time for yourself, and you're not taking, you have so much going on, and then you have so much to do, and you're overwhelmed with everything that you just don't do anything, and you're paralyzed with how much you have to do. And it was, like, fascinating because I can relate to that a lot, because it's like, well, I'm busy all the time, but I still make time for the things that, my goals and what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
But it's sad because you kind of, you think about being human, and you think about what what your goals are about being human, and it's not just about being busy and like checking off boxes. Yeah. It's more about fulfilling yourself and your goals and being inspired to do different things.
Like society's rat race, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It
never ends.
And it's terrible because when I read this article, it hit me hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's my life. Like,
because you work a lot. I mean, you do a lot of shit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an adjunct. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm busy. But I still make time for myself, which I didn't always do before. I think I was always like, school comes first, work comes first, everything else comes later. And now I try to balance all of it, and it's hard. It sucks. I mean, it's not.
It's a finicky balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really finicky balance, because I've talked to my friend about this too, and we're starting, by the way. You were talking about that article, and I knew you were going to say something, so I like to start like this.
That's fine.
Anybody who is listening now, Teena Handline is with me, and but before I lose this train of thought, we were saying like balance in your life is like it's different for everybody. Like, does balance to you look like 20% here, 20% here, 20% here, 20%? Or like, you have your 8 hours in the day. That's the majority. That's 60% of your time.
Yeah.
But you can still feel in balance with what you do in the other, 40% of your time.
I think it depends. So, like, I went from a job where I was working at home a lot, and which seems like a great gig, but it turned out I was working 12 hours a day versus the 8 hours in office. So it wasn't balanced at all. So
even when you were working at home?
Yeah. I mean, I would have trouble turning off. When you're in the office, you get there. When you leave, you can kind of turn it off a little bit within reason. But where I was working at home before, it was I'd get up at 8, I'd go to Starbucks till 12, I'd come into the gym for a couple hours, I'd go home at 2, and I'd be working probably till 8, 9 o'clock at night, just casually not realizing that I'm sitting on the couch slaving away working.
Yeah.
And
because you never have anywhere to leave your work.
No, I'm at home. And it was kind of
interesting.
I was almost like a prisoner in my own house a little bit, because I'm just like, this is what I need to be doing, and this is what I should be doing. And I made a change, not only because of, for multiple reasons, and my big thing was like, I have to go back in the office again. And it strangely was probably one of the best decisions I made.
Yeah.
Because now I am working like a true 8.5 hour day. I get an hour lunch where we have an office gym, so I've been working out there, so I still get that balance. And I make it a point, that's my break in the day. I get my hour to myself, headphones in, everything else goes away. Work phone stays upstairs. I don't touch work.
Yeah.
And I just lift or do whatever.
It just puts it in a better mental place when you can compartmentalize. Like, all right, I'm at home, so I can do my at-home things, or I'm at the gym, I can do my at-the-gym things, or work. Do you think, a lot of people work from home nowadays.
Yeah.
You could theoretically never have to leave your house and be a quote-unquote, like, productive member of society.
And what's bad about that, it's great for certain people, like for people who have kids, and, That's true. I've joked with my husband that, when we have kids, a work-from-home job would be great. We don't have to pay for daycare. I can balance it, but I'm still not leaving the house. Yeah. I'm still not.
You're never out of the house. Except to go to, like, the grocery or, like, Target, something like that. Yeah.
Who knew Target would be a sanctuary?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing about it that's really funny is, I first really embraced working from home because I'm like, this is great. I can wake up when I want. I ended up getting in such a rut that, I'd wake up later and I would be, I would sleep in late, and I felt not as compelled to want to do certain things. I read this really good quote the other day, and it said, you work 8 hours for a company and you come home, you're not too tired or busy, you're just uninspired. Which I loved, because I'm like, that's true. You get home from work, okay, you're tired, you had a long day, you're busy, but if you're not chasing your own goals, you're not doing your own thing, you're working for the company, you're not working for yourself.
Yeah.
So you're uninspired.
You're chasing somebody else's dream.
You're not chasing yourself. You're not chasing your own dream.
Interesting.
So that quote kind of hit me too, because I'm like, wow, I am trying to chase something.
Yeah.
Like I still try to sing on the sides. And I work out 6 days a week. Like I try to do stuff for myself, for my own personal self-development, which I don't think 5 years ago I would say I was doing. It was all work, school, no play. And
do you think, sometimes though, you got to go through the ringer to get to the point that you're at right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like sometimes you got to put in those 5 hard years of just grinding to be able to, relax or have the schedule that you want, the setup that you want.
Yeah, and it took some time. And I think, law school was law school. The bar was the bar. Like I had to do those things to get where I'm at, I guess. But I still don't think.
But do you have to, do you think, is there a possibility that that doesn't have to exist anymore?
Like what?
Like in today's world, think about all the technology and all the shit that we can do at the drop of a hat. You know what I mean? I think about this because we're making life so much simpler for ourselves. Like we literally just decided that you don't have to leave the house to make $100,000 a year or whatever it is. Like, why do we still have to go through this grind process of going to work, going home, going to school, going to bartend, going, and doing all these little things? It's just, it should be easier now, shouldn't it?
Well, yes and no. I think we still have a hustle mentality. Part of it is America.
Well, yeah.
We live in a very, live to work type of society versus, in Europe, they work to live. They don't live to work. We have a very workhorse mentality. That
what is it in Mexico where they take naps in the middle of the day?
Siestas.
Yeah.
In Spain too. And my family's from Portugal.
Right.
So if you wanted anything done from 12 to 2, you were screwed because everything was closed.
Yeah.
Because everyone took a 2-hour break and they, relaxed and did what they wanted to do. And, I try to live like that a little bit, still say, no, I'm turning off for the day. And it depends who you work for. If you work for somebody.
Yeah.
And if you work for yourself, also still giving yourself the time.
You're probably almost more likely to get that time if you don't work for yourself.
Yeah.
Is what I'm finding.
Yeah.
Because probably. I've been with the gym and stuff. This is the first time I've really been my own boss. And dude, there's a lot of shit to do when you're your own boss.
Yeah. It's not just business hours. You have things to do off hours. You got to think about.
There's a lot going on.
You have long-term things to think about, short-term things to think about. It's business.
Yeah. So that's a side note. But I agree, man. A work-to-live society. That's a good way to put it.
Because
that sucks.
Yeah.
I just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My first thought when I think about that, I'm like, fuck.
We live to work.
What are we doing?
We live to work.
We're wasting our time. Not saying work is bad, and I think it's productive, and I think it's you need that to be able to survive. But geez Louise.
And that's I have friends of mine, and my goal in finding the job that I wanted, or at least I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now, mostly because it has that balance. It's not I refuse to work for, a lot of my friends are doing this, and God bless them because I couldn't do it, are working 80-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks. And I'm like, how?
That's nuts.
Okay, you might be making a little more than me, but your hourly rate probably isn't much different because you're working so much.
Yeah.
How is that a balance? How is that my health is more important, my family is more important. I need to have time for myself to do things so I can say, what'd you do this weekend? I was able to do this, 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 and this. I didn't have to log on and do work all weekend,
I think, it's completely out of balance. And we'll get caught up in that because we're chasing, and this is very general, but I think we're just chasing that dollar sign.
Yeah, we're chasing.
And I'm not saying
prestige.
Don't.
We're chasing.
It's a status.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I'm not saying don't. I think, you obviously want to provide for your family or take care of yourselves, and statistics will be out there that once basic needs are met, food, shelter, bills, that kind of stuff, the extra dollars are just It's just greedy.
there's pressure too, though, to do that. I mean, like I have student loans, for example, so I'm thinking, crap, like I need to, and it's like a second rent payment, like it's insane, and the amount of money these schools are charging, and I mean, I'm not going to go into rant on student loans because I think everyone would relate to me.
Dude, there's this. I watched this show, and they were talking about student loans and basically like what's the real deal with Sally Mae and all that kind of stuff.
It's a mess.
It's such a hustle, dude. It's such a scam, dude.
And it's terrible.
It's fucked up. It's so fucked up. Where it's like starting people. We're setting college kids up to fail.
That's the worst part about it.
With a career that's probably, odds are, not going to be what your major is. You might get a job right away in that. That's probably not what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
And it's not going to pay your loans.
And it's not going to. Yeah, it's like, crazy.
I look back at my, so I gratefully only have law school loans. I have friends of mine who are in $200,000-$300,000 worth of debt.
Jeez.
And between law school and undergrad, if they went to private school for both, and didn't have any help, then they were screwed.
Yeah.
And they're paying
upwards
to like $2,100 a month for their student loans.
$2,100 a month for student loans?
So like,
how do you live?
Think of the pressure of that you have to, keep chasing a dollar sign just to make more money. You might be miserable, but you have to make the money so you can.
You have to
have. You might not even be able to buy a house because your student loans are so high.
That's crazy. Interest on those too. That was the other thing that I learned is even if you're making, don't make the minimum payment.
No.
Because you might be making payments, but your loan is going to go up. It's not going to decrease.
I was looking. So I was on a pay-as-you-earn type of plan the last couple of years, and I'm about to switch to like a normal payment plan because it was based on, our salaries together or whatever, and I was looking at the different payments, and it's like, well, if I pay this much for 10 years, I'm only paying like 10% more over the life of the loan. If I paid one that's 25 years, I'm like doubling I'm like, why am I going to pay $75K more to the government just in interest because I need more time to pay?
Interest is crazy.
$75,000.
That's insane.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm pressured more to want to pay these off in 10 years.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I don't pay it off in 10 years, I'm going to be paying them more. That's more out of my pocket.
Yeah.
For something that I worked my ass off for.
Yeah.
Why am I going to pay more? That's stupid. So I'm trying to find a balance. Here is balance again.
Yeah.
Trying to find a balance between a payment I can actually afford versus not paying the government. So I ended up picking one of the middle ones that it was not super aggressive, not super lax, and I'm paying maybe like $20,000 more in interest, which is still a lot of money.
Fucking crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
$20,000 just because.
Because I need a little more time. Because I want to pay. No joke, because I want to pay $700 a month versus $900.
That's insane. Even $700 a month is insane. When coming out of college, you got to pay. I guess you have like 6 months, right? Isn't that usually what it is? 6 months after college. Dude, I was not making enough money 6 months after college.
No.
I feel like a lot of people will default on them and that kind of stuff, and that just fucks you even more.
One day the bubble's gonna burst. It's coming, I think.
You think?
I think so.
The whole thing's just going to shut down? We're all getting out of it free? I should hold off?
No, I don't know.
Just keep racking up student debt because it's going to go down eventually.
I just think they, like you said earlier, it's set us up to fail.
It is.
And it's I'm fortunate enough to be in a position that with my schooling to be able to pay at least, and still be comfortable left at the end. I have a spouse as well, and we both, have two incomes coming in. But for some of my friends who they chose a nonprofit or a public service type of job because that's what they wanted to do,
which is a very respectable line
absolutely
of work.
But it doesn't pay.
But it's not going to pay.
I have a friend of mine went to law school, is in a public service type of position, and she's serving tables at night to help pay her student loans.
How crazy.
How ridiculous is that?
That is insane.
Because just because the job doesn't pay, it doesn't equate.
It's nuts that I don't know. Here's my question: is tuition rates are going up and up and up and up and up. At what point is it actually worth it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At what point are you paying? You're paying for way more than what the product is that you're getting. You know.
The funny thing is, I joke with my mom about this all the time, and it drives her crazy. I had free rides to like 7 schools out of high school. And I went to the one school that didn't give me a free ride.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And it was...
Was that for sport, for academics, or what was the...
Academics,
yeah.
for what the scholarships were for. And I had 7 free rides, and I'm thinking, no, this school has the better name. It's going to get me further. And I look back on it, I'm like, law school didn't care where I went for undergrad as long as my grades were good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could have went to college for free. And then my parents probably would have picked up some of my loss. Like, I would have been in so much of a better position, but I was so hell-bent because you're so pressured to care about the name and care about where you go. And I can say I went here and it matters.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
Oh, it's not Ivy League?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a mini Ivy or private or whatever. Like, I'm so dumb.
Yeah.
I was so smart but so dumb at the same time.
I guess knowing that you were going to go to law school, now what law school you go to probably matters a little bit more.
That matters, yeah.
But if getting into law school, they don't really give a shit.
As long as your grades are good.
Yeah, I can see how the hierarchy happens though, because you have a place like, Penn Medicine. Yeah, you probably know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You come out pretty highly regarded versus going to like, I don't know, Delaware
and the
County.
funny thing though, I wasn't sure I was going to go to law school after high school. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I had an inkling, and then as everyone goes through in college, well, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do this
Well,
instead.
that's the whole other side of it. You're playing with big money.
You're gambling on your career.
And a completely unsure mindset.
I watch Food Network a lot, and I see so many people who are like, I started in corporate America and then became a chef. And I'm like, what a life. How do you... That's awesome.
Those stories happen all the time.
But I think it's because they feel pressured to be in this situation where they can pay for certain things, their school, their house, or especially depending on where you live. Mm-hmm. And then they get to a point where they're like, I am miserable. I'm doing things because someone's telling me to, or because I think I need to, not because I want to.
Yeah.
And at what point do you say, I'm not happy? When do you do that?
I think that goes along with 2 things pop in my head. Is one, like I was saying, when basic needs are met. Mm-hmm. What are our basic needs now? Mm-hmm. We have, as the human animal, you need food, you need shelter, and we need love. Mm-hmm. You can get love for free, theoretically. Anywhere but Vegas. Shelter and food cost money, but they don't cost... You can knock that price down.
You don't need a filet mignon every night.
Right.
You don't.
But it's almost becoming, to get a job, to pay for shelter and food, you have to have a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. That's just the bare minimum nowadays.
My husband
or some sort of associates or trade school. Or you have to have some sort of education, usually after high school.
And
paying for that's now a new basic need. You're not getting out of that. And if you stop paying that, you're probably... Can you get arrested? You can get arrested for not paying that stuff, right? Does the IRS come... Who is that good? How does that all go?
It ends up being you can get a judgment against you for not paying, and then you default on them. You might end up having to file for bankruptcy or something. Yeah. Which could really screw you up.
So that's
but not even all
essentially
student
another
loans are
basic
discharged
need.
In that.
But that's essentially another, quote unquote, basic need.
Yeah.
That now the bar is raised up even higher that you're gonna have to pay.
It's funny. My husband, and his whole story. He was a cop, and with injury, no longer is, and he felt pressure to go back to school because he's like, I'm not doing this job anymore, and he didn't need a degree to become a cop 10 years ago, but now he's like, crap. If I want to go into the workforce, now what am I going to do? So he's been working, online to get his degree in finance to do something else with his life because he's like, if I don't have a degree, that's going to cut off my earning potential. I'm already going to have to go back to the bottom somewhere, even though I worked as a cop for 10 years, and that really doesn't carry much weight for the industry he wants to go into. Yeah. So he's exactly what you just said. He's feeling almost the basic need and the pressure to have to get a bachelor's so he can
Which is
work.
Nuts. Mm-hmm. Which is nuts. I think, and I'll say this too, I went to community college for my first 2 years, and this is just my own experience, but I went to community college, and just when we're talking about the quality of product, is it worth $50,000? Honestly, I'm gonna say no. Yeah. Barring here's the thing. I think if you're gonna go to college, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be, honestly, probably just those two, right?
Engineering,
maybe an engineer. But even still, you don't have to go to college to be an engineer.
Yeah.
You can just be a whiz kid and figure that shit out.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do surgeries, I want you to have some formal education on how to do it. If you're going to be a lawyer, you need to know and understand the law. Like, law school, medical school, I get it. Other than that, I believe that you could go into any other career and you don't have to have gone to college.
I'll be honest with you, you would learn how to be a lawyer on the
could,
job.
Yeah, that's probably one that could probably fall. I mean, just if you go to get a library card and read all this stuff, that's basically you're just being guided.
You learn it
through
on the
this
job.
Stuff.
I always
learn
complain
by experience.
I always complain about. I loved where I went to law school. I felt like I learned how to think better, but it did not teach me how to be a lawyer. It taught you how to prep for the bar.
I remember you were telling me about this. Yeah.
Law school did not. And I don't know about. I didn't go to med school, so I don't know how they teach in med school. But in law school, you have very few courses that teach you how to do your job, and you're like, well, this is not helping me become a lawyer. So you start in a new job.
It's all this
after law school, and you don't know how to do anything. Your paralegal or your legal assistant's going to know more than you 10 times out of 10.
How crazy is that?
And they didn't go, and they almost resent you a little bit. Not always, but they like internally almost resent you a little bit because they're like, you're probably making double what I'm making just because you went to school
for doing the same job. That's insane.
Isn't that nuts?
Even though I'm making double, I'm probably making the same because I got to pay all these freaking loans back.
Probably.
It equates out. Don't worry.
But it's crazy. It's nuts to think that we're kind of a slave to the education system. Really
though.
We are.
Because I'll tell you, man, some of the smartest people that I know, just in regards to life or even in the fitness industry, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, they're all just book read. Like they just, something
everything
that
I learned,
interested
I
them.
read it in the book.
Yeah, it's something that interested them. They didn't have any formal education on it, but they're some of the smartest people you've ever met in your life. And they don't have the degrees to back it up, so they won't get the recognition. But why not? You know what I mean?
I always look at it like this, and I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. Degrees and certifications and those things only get you so far if you know how to use them. And I'm a big believer that, like, I always use this analogy. How many bad professors did you have in college?
Too many.
They have PhDs. They have the degrees to back it up, but they don't have the people skills or those internal characteristics to be good teachers.
Well, what's more important, your IQ or your EQ?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think EQ. I think your emotional intelligence and your street smarts versus your book smarts.
I agree.
I think you got to be more street smart.
Yeah.
I think you have to.
I think there's a balance. So I teach, and I remember when I started teaching, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this. I don't know if that's something I'm going to. And I think I told you I ended up loving it.
I remember you were talking a little bit about what you were just saying about, I want to make my class prepare them for what they're actually going to be doing.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's a little bit of me
all the BS.
Not having that.
But that's what college or that's what school should be, right?
Yeah.
I'll even, as a side note, this makes me think about, we're getting rid of, for the majority, gym classes or extracurriculars are being cut out of elementary schools and high schools and stuff. How is that that's just going to set kids up to live sedentary and obese lifestyles? It's so school is not helping them with what it's supposed to be helping them with, which is a productive life.
And that, not only that, but I think they're failing to realize that not all students are bookworms.
Right.
Other kids I actually loved the high school I went to because we had a vocational program where if you were not book smart, you could get on the bus after third period and go to a different school, and you learned HVAC, you learned cars, learned hair, you learned culinary. You got to tinker with different industries to say, oh, I'm not going to be a failure when I get out of high school. I have this I can do. And you find a passion for something.
I would almost argue, honestly, that go to trade school.
Yeah.
Do go to vocational school. If you have that option, we had that option at my high school also, and I didn't do it. But I was, you come out of that and you graduate high school and say you've been, you're the VOTEC that you've been doing was with hair. Do you have, I don't know, do you have a barber's license when you're done that? Or you're at least right there?
But you're ready to like then go to a school, or then you can make connections and go to a salon and start working.
So
it
now
gets
you're
you inspired to do something.
Within the next, I don't know, this is a complete guess, but I would just say within the next 6 months, you're able to put all of the stuff you've been doing for the last 4 years to use.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but it prevents, I would think, dropout. Because I feel like a lot of the kids who drop out are either bored because they aren't good at school. Mm-hmm. They don't see like the big picture. They find something they like to do.
Yeah.
Then they're maybe less inclined to say, you know what, screw school, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like if they're not all kids, I think part of the problem with our education system is they try putting all kids in a bubble. Uh-huh. They don't recognize that some kids are artistic, some are musically inclined, some are, mm-hmm. I mean, and they do have some art-specific schools and stuff like that, but
even those are like the more well-off schools.
Yeah.
Like if you go to inner city school, it doesn't have a lot of money, stuff like that.
You're not going to be able
that shit's not around.
No.
You know?
You're going to be paying a hefty tuition to go to an art school like that.
Yeah.
It's private.
Yeah.
It's not a public offering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was lucky to go to a public school that had not only every sport under the sun, sure. including like surfing and sailing, which was
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had a surfing team and a sailing team. Yeah, you would have loved my high school.
Yeah, I would have loved my high school. That's sweet, man. I would have been on there.
But we had, we had archery in gym class, and we had...
all that stuff is so valuable. It's way more valuable than we put credit on it.
Yeah, we had 4 choirs, depending what style you wanted to mm-hmm. sing. We had different language clubs if you liked Spanish. Awesome. I was in a lot of these things because I had multiple interests and was trying to figure out, well, what do I like? What do I not like? I was kind of a nerd, not a surprise. But I ended up dropping my lunch and picked up a second language because I really loved languages. My brain thought that way. And
do you speak Portuguese?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Spanish. And I took French for 7 years, but I couldn't.
They're all pretty similar, though, right?
Yeah, they're all Romance language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Romance language.
Yeah, they're all Romance languages. All right, Dustin. But there's, I think something to be said. I'll never forget this, and it pissed me off, and I think it's part of the reason why I wanted to go to the school I went to, versus going to ones I had a free ride to. My guidance counselor. I remember I applied to Villanova, and she's like, your SATs are a little... I had like a 1280 SAT.
That's legit. Dude.
And she was like, your SATs are kind of low. I don't know. And I had like a 3.9 GPA, unweighted.
Yeah.
Because I took all honors crap.
Ipso facto, you're shooting.
Like, I should have been fine.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think Villanova's going to be a reach. I don't know if you're going to... And I'm like... And I think I was so resentful because I was like, I got in. Not deferred. Like, straight up just got in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in 4 honor societies, every club you can think of. I worked part-time on top of it. Like, what else can I possibly do? Yeah. And I think that's what puts all this pressure on these kids, because they're thinking they have to be the next president of the United States mm-hmm. to go to college.
Isn't that crazy?
And I'm like, I was in, like, National Honor Society, French, Spanish, and Trium Music. I was in like 4 choirs. Also, like I did everything.
Yeah.
Check mark by the book that you should be doing to get into a good school. And I'm like, thanks for not pushing me, lady. Like I should have tried. Maybe I should have stuck an application in an Ivy League and see what happened. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but she was kind of shooting you down from the jump.
Yeah, because of the numbers.
That's crazy.
It was stupid.
Same sort of thing happened. There's 2 things that kind of pop in my mind is. One, like I had a girl, my ex-girlfriend, she really wanted to be a teacher, mm-hmm. but she got convinced to go to school for speech pathology because teaching jobs aren't as readily available, and for some reason they thought that speech pathology was a better path. So she did it mm-hmm. because she's like, well, yeah, I want to get work, so I'm going to do that.
And you trust these people.
But in reality, speech pathology, like, it's not a very abundant field.
It's more narrow than teaching.
It's pretty narrow, yeah. But the other side is, we're looking up to these people mm-hmm. to give us these answers because we don't freaking know.
No.
But how to, knowing what I know now,
mm-hmm.
because as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that adults are just older teenagers. You know what I mean? Like we're just older
and they're
kids.
Jaded and sometimes don't care.
Sometimes they don't care. But the weight of that conversation literally put her in... $30,000 worth of debt for something that she's never going to use.
Nope. Nope.
Because someone along the way said, ooh, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because of jobs or this or that, It's insane. And like for you, you know what I mean? You have one person who's like, who you think has your best interest in mind, and you like to think they do. And I think some of them, or the majority, do. But what are they jaded by?
That makes
what happened in their life that's going to cause you to catch some repercussions of it in their opinion and this and that. But it's just insane to think that, and people say this all the time, when you're graduating high school, you have to pick something that's going to put you in, anywhere from 30 to hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that you're going to essentially or theoretically have to do for the rest of your life.
Yep. And then you have to make a decision.
Get the fuck out of here.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
I know.
That's insane.
And I switched majors 3 times. And
yeah.
I'll never forget this either.
I think I switched 4 times.
I switched 3 times. And I remember I switched to psychology. I was very interested in psychology.
Cool.
Loved psychology. And I had a meeting and I got, I was like, you know what? Fuck psychology. Because I had a meeting with one of the people, their advisors, and they're like, well, if you're not getting your PhD, you're wasting your time. And I'm like, I'm not ready to commit that yet. I'm a sophomore in college. I don't think I'm willing to say I love psychology to the point where I know I'm getting my PhD.
Yeah. How long does a PhD? Because that's what? It's a 5-year process?
It depends.
For a PhD?
It could be anywhere
10 years of school?
Depends when your dissertation's done and all that, and your research. But I'm like, I'm not ready to commit to that yet.
It's huge.
That's a lot to ask a sophomore, a 19, 20-year-old in college, that they're ready to commit to something like that the rest of their life.
It's nuts. When I went to community college at first, and I was going to do electric. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I went to communications, and then I went to exercise science, and then nutrition, and then I did this one that's called, it's basically you can put all of your, credits into one thing. I think it's called professional studies. And basically you pick 5 different minors that make up your major under this blanket thing. But it's like you said, how do you pick? How do you know? How do you commit? I have a friend who's doing medical school, and she's still in there. She's still in medical school, and she was in undergrad, and she's probably the 1% that went to undergrad knowing she wants to go to medical school, and knowing that, you know what I mean? She's living out the actual plan.
Yeah.
But it's just, when I hear that, I'm sure she was telling me about it, it's like, jeez Louise. If you were to ask me even 2 years ago what I wanted to do in the next 2 years, I had no idea what I would tell you. It would not be what I'm doing right now, probably.
But I think the most important thing is when you make the decision, run with it. Don't waver. Don't. Because
You think?
I think so. Because I think when I made, when I graduated law school, I was like, I don't want to work for a law firm.
Yeah.
I don't want that life. I know that's not what I wanted. I had a very weird roundabout way to get to where I'm at. And if it wasn't for me saying, no, I'm sticking to my guns, I'm not going to go for a law firm.
Yeah.
I may not have been a traditional lawyer my first few years, but I built the skill set necessary to then say, I'm going to be a damn good corporate lawyer. And I may not have worked at a firm, but in-house they recognized, oh, she has this skill. That's awesome. This and this. And it gave me, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I stuck to my guns. And I didn't pick something that I knew I'd be miserable doing.
Right.
Just for the sake of saying, well, I'm a lawyer at a law firm. I know. It's not what I wanted. I knew very early on, I'm like, if I could not go to court once my entire career, I'd be thrilled. And I've, knock on wood, I'm still not in court. Other than jury duty, which was strange.
Different.
But, I think when you make a decision like that you feel good about, you have to run with it.
Yeah. How do you, I guess, so that's one of those things I think you're able to conceptualize that looking back.
Yeah.
Hindsight's
at the time,
always 20/20.
Always.
So I think what's tricky is, how do you, I don't know. How do you know? How do you know that that's what you actually want and you're not being influenced by what other people are telling you to do?
You have to know yourself. I think I've, over the last 7 years, learned a lot about myself and trusting my instincts and saying, well, if this doesn't work, what's plan B? And I'm also one of those people who like think of all the what ifs or most of the what ifs.
Yeah, like a good lawyer would.
I guess. I guess that's where it came from.
Yeah.
That's what law school did, I guess. But I think it gave me, you know, you have to know, like I knew enough about myself to know I might be a good litigator. Mm-hmm. My mom always said, she's like, you'd be great in court. I'm like, I may be, but that's not what I want to do. It's not what I like. It's not my passion. Like I like corporate work. Which was not what I thought going into law school.
Yeah.
But I think you need to know yourself to know, and this is where the balance, I'm kind of circling back to our balance discussion. There's a difference between passion and practicality. You have to try to find a nice hybrid between the two.
I agree.
You know, my passion, like I love music, I love to bake, I have all these different hobbies that if I could make them into a career, that'd be awesome. Mm-hmm. But then I also still have to pay my bills.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think I love what I do, maybe not as much as my like passions for my hobbies, but there's a balance I think between knowing yourself to know, well, this is what I enjoy my job, I enjoy my 9 to 5, but still have the balance to do the other things that I love. Yeah,
that's a good point. I'll talk about what was I gonna say? Like having things that you love to do. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes the balance comes in with, you know, here I love to bake or you love to bake, right? You love to do that right now because there's no pressure on it. Yeah. You know, if baking was your main source of income, there'd be a lot more pressure on it. And therefore, sometimes for some people, it falls out and you're like, oh, you know, something that you once loved doing, it's no longer what you like. So I think it's good to have work and it's good to have hobbies and it's good to, you know, separate church and state like that. It's good to have things that are outside of other things. You know, it doesn't mean you have to go to work and work is something that you don't like. Yeah. But have other things that are outlets away from it and be multifaceted and all that. But I think the biggest thing, and what makes this decision so hard for people, you know, and it's not necessarily money. It's not the worry of not getting a job. It's, you know, it's answering the question, am I wasting my time? Mm-hmm. Because above money, above
time is valuable.
You know, above materials, above all that stuff, time is the number one thing that we're all racing against. You know what I mean? So I think for me, the biggest thing is like, I just never want to feel like I wasted my time. So I'll try to look back on, you know, college, like, all right, well, I did learn this, or what I did learn is that, you know, maybe college isn't for everybody. Like things that I learned that weren't in the books, but while I was still in college, you know what I mean? Like how to pay bills, how to live on your own, you know,
that's the big one.
That kind of stuff. So you are learning those life skills when you sort of flee the nest and go to college or whatever, but you know, do you have to go to college to learn those things? No. Does it help? Sure.
It kind of cuts the cord quicker, I think.
Yeah, it cuts the cord quicker. And you know, I don't know how strict student loan laws are, but everybody can seemingly do that. Yeah. You know, if you get into college, you can apply for loans and you can live that life for at least 4 years and figure that stuff out. So I think that's valuable. But in all honesty, like, it's just time, and it doesn't want to be time. You don't want to have time wasted. It's true. You know, so for example, if you're getting a degree, but you don't use that degree in your career, you'll say, oh, well, at least I have a degree and it shows that I can complete college. Yeah. You know,
but what does that really show?
Things. But what does that mean? It means that you know how to live.
You know how to read a book.
You know? You know how to read a book, and you know how to show up on time sometimes.
There was this guy in law school, and this reminded me of this. And law school, they really care about your grades and how good you do. And your GPA and your class rank mean a lot for these big law firm jobs.
Sure.
And I always just get so pissed. So I had brain surgery during my first year of law school, which kind of, like, threw a wrench in my first year a little bit. Yeah. And it kind of screwed me for certain firm jobs. Maybe that's why I'm resentful against law firms, because they only wanted, like, top 20% or top 5%. And I'm like, I had a couple classes that were very practical. They were negotiation classes or client counseling classes. And they were my best classes. I think my EQ, while my IQ I think is high, I think my EQ is higher. Yeah. Because
you're a very sociable person.
And I perceive people well, and I can read people well. My current boss actually laughs because he's like, you are very good at hearing people's discussions and seeing exactly what they're thinking just by listening to them. And I'm like, I guess, I don't know. Yeah. But
well, active listening, man.
But that's the thing, you know, and you can hear like if they really want to do something or if they don't just by listening to what they're saying. And This one guy was brilliant, like book smart brilliant.
Okay.
But he would counsel his clients terribly. And I'm like, that's the job. The job is not being able to read a book and recite the law. That helps. But if you can't talk to your client or perceptualize them well, you're not going to get business. B, you're not going to get clients or retain them. Mm-hmm. And C, you're going to be a pretty shitty lawyer.
Yeah.
And it always baffled my mind because I'm like, 95% of the job isn't how you can read. I mean, it matters how you write. It matters how you read. But the majority of it is, does your clients like you and trust you enough to follow your counseling?
Very true.
And you don't learn that in a book. You learn that through A, what your EQ is, and how you develop that over time, and B, working in situations where you're working with people. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, the guy was kind of a dick, too. And because he thought he was the shit, because he was smart, and he was up there, up there. But at the end of the day, he was so arrogant when we were in, I remember he counseled his client something like, oh, just sign it, it's fine, or something like really, really passive aggressive. And I was like in the back of the room, and I'm like, what do you mean, just sign it? Like, and it turned into this big discussion, like, here's what you don't do, like, and I don't know if it was his arrogance that he just didn't care, or it was just a class and he was like, whatever.
Interesting.
But it turned out to be nothing to do with book smarts. It had to do everything with how can you talk to people? How can you say things in a way that won't offend people? Mm-hmm. Do you know how to word things, hard news? Do you know how to word things that are less harsh?
Yeah.
And he didn't have that he had no bedside manner, for lack of a better term.
I gotcha. Yep.
And I'll never forget that exact day and that exact moment that I'm like, lawyering is way more than just being able to read a book and pass a test. It's about being able to, speak to people. And that's why I like working in-house, because you work with business people all day. It's not just, briefs and legal decisions and reading cases. It's, here's a problem. How do we fix it? And I don't think he could do that. I don't, because I don't think he has that
critical
skill.
Thinking and problem solving.
I don't think he has that skill. It's fascinating.
I say that all the time too. Yeah, sort of like with the gym, like hiring John. Mm-hmm. I was telling him all the time, like, dude, I can teach you how to, properly teach a squat, or how to teach a snatch or pull-ups or whatever. He's like, but I can't teach you to not be an asshole. You know what I mean? It's way harder for me to teach you to be a likable person and to give a shit about people. How to coach
effectively.
How to get people, how to build rapport with like nonverbal communication stuff. A lot of that stuff is natural. A lot of that stuff is just people and those types of things. You can teach it if you bring awareness to stuff like that, but
if you don't learn your delivery, if you don't deliver properly, then
like with most jobs, most jobs aren't about the actual facts of the job. It's about, can you build rapport with somebody to where they actually trust and believe in what you're saying.
And the funny thing is, it's something as simple as just responding or being active and available. Like I had a situation at work where my predecessors allegedly did not respond quickly. They would take weeks before they would give something back. I would hand something
emails
over.
Or something? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I would hand I would review a contract, send it back within like 2 or 3 days. And they were like, oh, that was speedy. Great. That's awesome. Thank you. And like, now I have a friend. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, it took me 2 days, but if that's fine with you, cool. Like, where before it was months. I actually am still working on something that one of my predecessors worked on last in May. And it just sat. And I'm like, how do you work like that? Like, that's mentally, wild. That gives me anxiety.
What are you doing? What do you do with your time?
Shop, probably online.
Doing nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah, playing asteroids on the computer.
Yeah, probably. But it's fascinating how these type of, any job, I mean, working at a gym, being a lawyer, serving tables, if you don't know how to act with people, you don't know how to deliver things a certain way, you don't develop that rapport. Even I used to serve tables.
Serving tables that's a big one.
That's the best way to do it.
That's the best way to learn. Another guy, Tony, who was on the podcast, Tony, he was like, any young kid, he's like, here's my advice, any young kid who wants to learn about the world, go serve tables. Because you'll get
served for 6 years.
Customer service, there's going to be people who are assholes, and you still got to smile at them and shit like that. And
then you turn around, roll your eyes, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. You learn things in that setting that you're not going to get from anywhere else. You know,
I'll never,
it's such a great. It really is a great industry for anybody who, you know, like a young kid or something to learn.
I served from 16 till my car accident in 2010, so like 21-ish.
Yeah.
So about 5-6 years. And in all kinds of places. I worked at Olive Garden, I worked at IHOP, I worked at a fancy place, I worked at a bar, I food ran, I served. And I think the hardest place I ever worked was Olive Garden in Northeast Philly, because it was the city. And you had such a melting pot of people, different cultures, different expectations. In some cultures, some tip better than others. So you know what I mean? And you kind of had to play the part.
Some cultures can't eat certain foods, or like
you had to change, you know, or they.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it was that was a melting pot of a place. Yeah, in a great way.
Right. Well, you become cultured. You become.
Whoa.
You become, you know, more aware of different things. Like when you talk about doctors and such.
Yeah.
Like. If say you have a family who is I don't know, and this I could be completely wrong here, but like Chinese, you know, traditionally in that culture, like the men are the dominant and women don't talk as much. So like even if you're talking about
understanding that
you're delivering news on a diagnosis or whatever to the family. Like you'll tell it to the man first, and then the wife, even though the wife might be sick or you know what I mean. Like you have to be culturally appropriate.
Or like we had a pretty large Muslim and Jewish community up in Northeast Philly. We have a lot of Russians, Russian Jewish Americans who would come in, and you knew 9 times out of 10 they don't eat pork or they don't eat bacon.
Oh yeah.
So if they ordered something, you would have to kind of learn it has bacon. Is that okay? You know, and 9 times out of 10, oh no, I can't have that. Don't.
I think for the most part too, people are very like appreciative of that.
Yeah, and you'll get the one asshole who are like, "What? Do you assume I don't eat bacon because I have this on or whatever?" And that happens, but 9 times out of 10 they appreciate that you at least acknowledge that they have beliefs or they have. And you're not trying to just, you know, aimlessly serve them something.
You're trying to be respectful and.
Yeah. So I think
that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think like serving tables for me, I think is what gave me the strong baseline to like people and to, and I think I made pretty good money doing it because you're with them for 20 minutes of their day or maybe longer depending on whatever, but you develop a rapport in 20 minutes. That's the quickest first impression you're ever going to make anywhere. Totally. And if you get regulars who come back. You made an impression in 20 minutes for them to want to see you again. Yeah. And have them serve you again. Or you serve them again. You know, it's crazy.
If you think of it, even on an instinctual level, like, why does your dog love you so much? Yeah. Because you feed it. You know? How do you get your dog to listen? You feed it. Yeah. You know, as humans, when the person who's serving tables, and I don't know, the psychology of waitressing, I could be completely talking out of my ass here too.
It's fine.
But if you think about it, you know, that person is serving you food. Or your mom, you know, when you go home, your mom serves you dinner. It's like the best thing in the world, even if it's like a shitty meal, you know.
But you never tell her.
Because, exactly. You don't tell her that. But it's the act of someone giving you something that is literally life. Yeah. Food, you need food to live. You know, so the person who's waiting tables, like you said, you build that first impression in that relationship.
And if
someone gives you shitty service, you're like, oh God, it was horrible, blah, blah. Because you don't want that ritual of you ingesting, you know, quote unquote, life into your body to be.
It's something as simple as just, and I'm going to go in the basics of serving. When after you serve them, after a few minutes, how is everything? Can I get you anything? Can I get you another drink?
Just
like it sounds so little and so silly, but if you don't, like now that I've served, I'm I guess pickier. And I also tip better if they're good, but because I remember being there and being like, I gave them everything and I didn't get like what I wanted or what I should be getting. Right. And you know,
forgot my French fries.
Right. Or like blaming the server because the kitchen didn't do what they were supposed to do. Yeah. You know, but. It's funny because you get this like expectation of, you know, well, they're serving not just my food, but they're trying to give me an experience. Right. You know, it's supposed to be there's not an expectation of like 5-star quality everywhere you go, But there's like a developed rapport that you're expecting from a server.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not like a fake, hi, can I get you some? Not everyone's going to have the best day.
Right.
And sometimes you get them on a bad day.
Right.
But there's still those basic elements that I think that are expected.
But you can just tell.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can just tell. If someone really has your back, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if someone's really taking care of you can tell.
I had one table. It was the worst. They were so bad, I'll never forget them.
Yeah.
At Olive Garden, you can get soup. I know. I would never. I would never.
I didn't spit. Someone else did.
No.
Okay.
But at Olive Garden, you can get soup, and you get it's unlimited soup.
Okay. Ooh,
and
nice. Yeah.
And you can. These people, I think between the 4 of them, each had 7 bowls of soup. So I think, and then they had hot tea on top of it, which were these little things of hot water that only fill maybe a cup, and they each had maybe 4 cups of tea.
Just peeing themselves?
I don't know.
That's so much liquid.
It's so much liquid. And they sat for about 3 hours, and they gave me a $2 tip.
Stop.
I swear to God.
No.
And it was like the total between the 4 of them, because it was unlimited everything, was like $18.
So
and
they were just
they put a
tipping off
20
that.
and called it a day. And I'm like,
son of a bitch.
yeah. And you look back and you're like, sometimes it's more than just the bill. It's like they were there for 2 hours sitting at a table eating unlimited soup and breadsticks, and then just paid me off the bill.
Yeah.
Actually, they paid me less than the bill, really, but
Well, that's what you got to think about. Like, I have a friend who she bartends, and so if we were ever, we used to go out and, she'd give us like the family and friends discount.
Yeah.
Where like we'd pay for like every other drink. We'd rack up a tab that in theory was like $40-$50. We'd pay like $15 or $20 for it, But we would tip her
based
off
on
of
what it
it actually should have been, because, you're getting. In reality, what did that bar pay for those drinks? Probably only like $15 or $20.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But the tip comes from
The
her
service.
giving it to you every time and whatnot. She's still doing the work of a $50 tab.
Yep.
So, pay accordingly.
Yes.
I'm a big tipper. I think that's
Me
a big
too.
deal.
I tip 20% if they were
I
okay.
go 20%. Yeah.
If they were okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If they were like they did what they were supposed to do, my husband and I usually give like 25-30%.
Yeah.
If they were just like nothing special, we'll get like my default's 20%.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get under 20%.
Yeah, you have to be a real asshole.
You have to be really terrible.
Yeah.
And it's happened too. I mean, very rarely have I ever given like 15.
Isn't it weird how, think about it like this, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this is only me, but if it's known that in restaurants you're going to tip them, but if someone was expecting a tip from me, I wouldn't want to give it to them.
Well,
You know
the
what I
funny
mean?
thing is, culturally, this happens a lot when I go to Portugal to see my family, you don't tip.
Oh, really?
You tip very little. And I think that's part of the reason why culturally when people from overseas, from all over, come here, maybe that's why they don't tip as well.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the culture of us tipping 20% of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
There, I remember the bill was like, we were at a cafe, and the bill was like €10. So I tried giving like €2 on top of it or whatever. My mom goes, no, you don't do that here. And I'm like, why? And she goes, well, they're going to expect it every time. And that's a very high tip. You only give like 5% or something very little just to show your appreciation.
Yeah.
But they get paid like an hourly rate versus here where
You get like
it's just only
$2
tips.
an hour or whatever, yeah.
So it's fascinating.
That is
There's
interesting.
a cultural, and I mean, I'm not talking, I don't know the cultural aspects of tipping everywhere, but I know from my experience, my mom goes, no. Like you give like 50, not euros, but like the little
50 cents,
50
like
cents or
little
whatever it
coins
is.
Yeah.
You just give them the basics because it's just to say you appreciate their service.
Yeah.
But it's not a percentage of what the bill was because that's not how they do it.
I feel like for that, I'd be more likely to give them more. You know what I mean? Like,
there's not an
if
expectation.
someone's expecting it from me, then I'm going to be like, dude, stop. No, you know,
Like
I don't
if
know
they were-
why. Why is that? Like, why do you?
Well, because you feel like they should be working for their money.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially because we're in a culture where serving, it is solely based on tips. Then you're like, well, and it sounds terrible because you're like, be my puppet. You work hard, I'll give you money. Like, it sounds awful.
It's not even that. I'm going to tip regardless.
Me too.
I'll give it to you.
I've never stiffed somebody ever.
No, I don't do that either. I don't believe in it. I think it's because here is somebody, like I said, who's taking care of you.
Yeah.
You know?
And they could be having a bad day.
Or
the kitchen could be having a bad day.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, if you're not happy with something, it may not be service related, it may be food related.
Yeah.
If the kitchen's taking a while. Now, my thing is, if you know the food's taking a while, acknowledge it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, sorry it's taking a while. Yeah. So easy.
And then that's cool.
Whatever.
Like, especially because I've been there, sometimes the kitchen fucks up the food.
Yeah.
And they got to remake it as fast as they can to make it presentable. They made sometimes you put it in wrong. And then they have to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's
the restaurant business is heavy.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is hard.
But yeah.
Interesting. It is it is, you get the most diverse group of people in a restaurant.
Yep. Especially like a chain. You know, if you're not
or
at like
cruise. Have you ever been on a cruise? Mm-mm. If you go on a cruise, that is the perfect way to like sample size populations, because some of the people that you see, it's like, how are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, like,
and it's funny.
It's nuts, but it's awesome. It's such a snapshot of
and it really depends
culture.
where you work. Because my husband, who's a cop, he was taught, and now I think this is why he's, I don't want to say jaded, but he looks at people differently, I think.
Yeah.
Society as a whole, not just like...
Well, because you're conditioned, especially as a cop. Mm-hmm. You're conditioned to, you got to be on point.
The funny thing is, I think it's part of the reason why we can't find a house, because he's so particular of like the neighborhood and whatever, because he's so hypersensitive to it.
Security laser beams.
Yeah.
Booby traps everywhere. Booty traps.
He was taught that you will always see people, when they call you, it's their worst day. No one's ever calling the cops on their best day.
Just to say hi.
No.
Yeah, it's true.
You're always going to see people on their worst day. And I never thought of it that way, but I'm like, that's right.
I wonder what that does to him mentally.
Right, that's what I mean. I feel like sometimes I think is jaded in the fact that I think he sees good in people, but I think he also can see the bad too.
He's always skeptical.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
Because he always see, like, anytime you would get a call, it's someone having their worst day. Either the guy you're catching or the person who's calling.
Right.
They're having their worst day.
Huh. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah. You're never calling the cops for fun.
No, you're not calling just to say what's up or anything like that. People are always running away from you. Mm-hmm. You know, like, trying to scam you.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't speeding, or I wasn't doing this or that.
Even on a basic traffic
like your
stop.
bullshit meter is
you're
always
making.
up.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think that's why I'd be bad at it. Like, I'm horrible with.
You're too nice.
I'm good with. Yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah. You're having a bad day. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Just go.
There was this one time. This is funny, and this, like, looking back, it was like so dumb of me. I was driving. I was in high school, and I was driving, and I was at like this red light, and this lady like rear-ended me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And like, I wasn't upset, but I was like, I hope everybody's okay. So I got out. It wasn't really rough. Like, it wasn't a bad accident or anything. I looked at my car. There was like a little dent in the bumper, but I had a Wrangler. So it was like, cool. It looks cool when it has dents in it. So I was like, all right. So
only you, I swear.
I go to the lady, and she clearly was at fault.
Yeah.
And like, I could have gotten her, but she is sitting behind the wheel, and it's just her. And she's got a little pregnant belly.
Oh.
Like, not fully pregnant, but like pregnant enough to where I could tell.
Like 4 or 5 months.
And she's like breathing really heavily. And I'm like, oh my God, are you all right? Are you all right? And she's like, I'm fine. I think I'm going into labor. I'm driving to the hospital. And I was like, oh my God. Like, freaking out. Do you need me to drive you? Do you need me to take you? Blah, blah. She's like, no, I can do it. I'm good. And I'm like, oh man, all right, I hope you're okay, like, blah, blah. And like, I like blocked traffic to let her go and all this stuff. And then looking back, I'm like,
she totally snaked you.
She was not in labor. She liar.
Totally snaked you.
Completely snaked me. Like, I wasn't going to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
But I was like, I completely fell for it. Like, my radar was completely gone. It was like so horrible.
That's funny. Well, that reminds me. I got in an accident last year, and it was totally my fault. Like, I was in a road that I wasn't familiar with, didn't know there was a stop sign, completely T-boned this dude. And I think you were here last year when that happened. You might have been here.
I might have heard of it.
And the guy could have reacted one of two ways. He could have freaked out on me, or it could have been like, no one's hurt. You have insurance. We're cool.
This out. We're good.
And the cop came, saw we were fine. There was no alcohol. And this lady was like, I'm a witness. I saw what happened. Blah, 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 blah. And the guy's like, chill. There's no issue.
I'm a witness. I saw.
She like was ready to throw down.
That was her excitement for the day.
Yeah. And the guy was like, chill out. Like, we don't need you. We're fine. Thanks. Because I was clearly like, I'm at fault.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. No big deal. And I mean, that was really dumb. I'm kind of the same way. Like, I'm too nice. Like, I would be a terrible. Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why I want to litigate, because I don't like winning or losing. Like, I like coming to a compromise and coming together and figuring it out. And I was at fault. Like, I believe in doing the right thing, and if I was at fault, it was my fault.
Well, admit it. Yeah.
And I admit it, and it was what it was. And the cop came and was like, clearly there's no issues. Like, you're admitting fault. You hit him. He's not, like, no one's hurt. He could have been like, oh, my neck. And he was just like, you know what?
You'd be paying him $1,000 for the rest of his life every month.
Yeah. And he was a good person. Like, I hit the right guy that day. If I hit the woman who was like, I'm a witness, I'd be screwed.
You'd be in trouble.
Yeah. So as terrible as it is, I hit the right guy that day. And it was like, I drove out of it, and I'm like,
I hit the right guy.
That's funny. Whoops. But I drove out of it, and I'm like, all right, no one was hurt, which was good, but I was still, like, shaking. Yeah. And I'm like, I could have hit someone who, A, would have sued me, B, could have done, knock on wood, he still could sue me, but he hasn't yet.
Right, yeah.
And I doubt he's going to.
Yeah, you're good.
I fixed his car.
Yeah.
My insurance paid for it. It was smooth sailing. And it could have been worse. And I think a lot of it's human reaction and how people escalate things to where they shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And I look back and I'm like, and this kind of reminded me of that lady. Like, she was like, I gotta get out of this. I'm screwed. Yeah. And you could have been worse. Yeah. So I think a lot of it's like, that's the perfect situation of, if no one's hurt, obviously, how do people react? Yeah. Do they escalate? Like, I remember I was crying because I'm like, I hurt your car. Like, I didn't hurt you, but I hurt your car. Yeah. Because, cars have feelings. And my car was the one who actually got the worst of it. I had my little Juke, and this guy had a Ridgeline. Yeah. So, like, my car got the worst. He
had a big car.
Yeah, and it was, like, the side. It was his door that had to get fixed. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. And it wasn't even a big deal. Like, it wasn't anything in the front. It wasn't his wheel. Like, I hit him dead center in his car.
I think that's the thing, is how people are going to react. Because there are people out there who, I've also hit the wrong lady. Mm-hmm. And she immediately, oh, my neck hurts, this, that, I need money. I'm like, stop. Yeah. No, it doesn't. But people do it. People take advantage of those kinds of things all the time. Like, you get sued for anything. You can get sued for literally anything these days.
Which is why, as a lawyer, I'm always like, yeah. Because you have to be hypersensitive to all of it. I mean, and the funny thing is, because people will say anything, people like me who actually have brain surgery after a car accident, I got screwed in my lawsuit. I got completely screwed.
What happened? So go ahead. So your brain surgery, talk about it.
So I got hit in 2010, fender bender. My car should have been totaled. I had frame damage on my car. It was a pretty hard accident. Uh-huh. This guy had a big truck. I had an Altima. And the way I went forward and back, I was having, I went to the hospital right after the accident. And I had headaches. I was seeing spots. I had numbness and tingling. And they're like, oh, it's just from the whiplash. You'll be fine. I'm like, all right, fine. Weeks after that, I'm throwing up all the time. I'm having headaches. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this isn't whiplash. Yeah. I kept saying whiplash, whiplash, whiplash. And I was in and out of the hospital. That long, does it? It shouldn't. And I went through physical therapy, whatever. That didn't help. So I ended up going to a neurologist who then did an MRI and found that my brain was herniated. The tonsils of my brain were outside of my skull into my spinal cord. It's this thing called Chiari malformation. And I also had 2 pockets of spinal fluid inside my spinal cord. They're called syrinxes that were causing the neurological symptoms that I was having. And it turned into this big thing. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Did I have this before the accident? The accident made it worse? Yeah. Or did the accident give me the thing? Uh-huh. And either way, I should have been compensated for it because the guy made it worse. But if
the guy hit you?
Mm-hmm.
So he was at fault in the accident anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
And part of it was, I think, the unfamiliarity with my condition and no one knowing what it does and how it works, and my lawyer not having too much familiarity either with it.
But regardless, if you weren't showing those symptoms before the accident,
never had headaches before, migraines, nothing. It should have been a clear cut.
It should,
something.
yeah, right.
Nope, I got screwed.
Nothing. You didn't get anything.
I got after all was said and done, like $4,000.
That's fucking crazy.
People get more than that for like a broken finger.
Yeah. But that's a legitimate case, because here's something that is affecting your your ability to provide for yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So about a year later, I was sitting in law school, and they said, you're gonna have to have surgery. Your brain's caused, like the way it's sitting, it's causing your fluid to not flow properly, and I'm gonna need to eventually like open up the back of your head, and so your brain has more room. And I'm like, great. When do I have time? Here's precious time we're talking about. I'm like in law, so I went to college, got married, started law school all in like a 4-month span.
That's crazy.
I'm like, I have no time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like I don't have time for this. So he's like, well, if, right now your symptoms are there, but like they're not to the point where you have to like rush to operate. And I said, okay. So we'll wait till winter break because, I need about 2-3 weeks. We'll wait till winter break.
Even something like brain surgery, you're like, well, is this a good time for you?
Can I pencil this in somewhere? Where can I pencil in brain surgery?
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait that long. So October came around and I was in class and I got this numbness feeling, like almost like it felt like what they said felt like a stroke. Like I like numb from ear to toe on my left side of my body.
Yeah.
I couldn't even use it. It was like not usable. So I went to Bryn Mawr Hospital because I was that's where my neurosurgeon was. I'm like, I'm not having anyone just operate on me. And
on the brain especially.
Yeah.
Someone who went to college.
Yeah. That's probably qualified.
See, college
is good for something.
Prerequisite.
Brain surgery. And the guy was like, the neurosurgeon was like, well, we have to operate. And I was working full time, going to law school at night. And I'm like, that gave me like the break, like literally pumped the brakes on everything. And I'm like, all that time, I'm still studying while I'm in the hospital, like waiting for surgery.
So crazy.
One of my professors, who I like love to this day, actually came to the hospital and gave me a lecture of what I was missing while I was gone.
Oh, wow.
I was in the hospital for 14 days.
Yeah.
ICU for 3. So what they ended up doing is they took like a golf ball size piece of my skull out, and I had 25 staples in the back of my head. The back of my head was completely shaved, and there it was. Like,
and now,
yeah. So what made that difficult is while it took some of my headaches away, while it took the good stuff away, but it took a lot of bad stuff for me too. Like I lost my ability to, so I had to read like looking up, because looking down for long periods of time would give me headaches.
Yeah.
So what we ended up learning is I went to this Chiari Institute in New York like a year and a half later after surgery, where I'm like, why am I still not better? We went to some specialists in New York because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I went through freaking brain surgery and I'm not better. Like I don't know what's going on. And we found out I have this other thing called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which this is like a roundabout way to get there, but it's like a joint disorder where I'm hypermobile, I guess is the best way to describe it. So my shoulders go to angles they shouldn't go, and my knees go to angles they shouldn't go. So my neck was doing the same thing. My head was essentially a bowling ball on a straw. So like when I would lean forward, I had no support.
Yeah.
So
does that come from like your pituitary though? Is that hormonal?
It's something with my what, I can't think of the name of the doctor that I would go see for that. It's joint related, so it has nothing to do with hormones. It's
like you didn't go to like an endocrinologist. Interesting.
But ironically, I still had hormonal issues later.
But that makes sense. Like if bowling ball on a straw, like if you're not getting supported or anything, that'll mess you up.
Yeah. So fast forward to 2 years after that.
You didn't know about that before either. That's probably something you were born with.
Oh yeah, I was probably born with both, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But I had no symptoms. I had no idea. I wasn't like extra flexible as a kid or anything.
Yeah.
Like not that I can remember. But I always joke, I'm like, I missed my gymnast opportunity. Shoot, You know, I was already
Or
short
like
statured and had flexible.
What's the lady in the circus who can like, you know?
Yeah, the
put her legs
Elastigirl.
behind her head, Elastigirl.
I missed my
That's
opportunity.
you.
But the funny thing is like after it was all said and done, I just wanted my life back, and like I couldn't do anything more than swim for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was, you know, and was gaining weight because before that I was pretty active. I was spinning multiple days a week. I was, you know, not lifting like now, but I was doing some kind of strength training. I was on the elliptical but the elliptical was even giving me headaches because the bobbing of my head like couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So little by little, it was a lot of trial and error. And I'm like, I need to figure this out. Like I need to figure out a way that I can be active because it's good for me and it helps me feel good.
Right.
And swimming, while it was okay, wasn't doing it for me.
I'd almost imagine swimming might bother you.
Well, it was
Like,
very low
being
impact.
in the water, out of the water, like
I
breathing.
was
and all
usually
that.
just doing like backstroke. I couldn't do like.
Oh, okay, backstroke. That would make more sense.
Yeah, I couldn't do very fast because you're moving
it's
your
like you're
head
turning your
back and
head
forth.
back and forth, all that.
I couldn't do that for too long.
Swimming is hard in general.
Yeah, I liked it though. I mean, it was the one thing I could do.
Right.
And I moved from that to spin classes because I was like, okay, I'm sitting on a bike. I may not be able to do like all the positions, but let me move to spin and see if that gives. So
more
I
intensity.
would do spinning I did spinning for like a year and a half of just 5 days a week of spin because it was like the only thing I could do and it felt good. And I'm like, you know, it's about being adaptable and flexible, I think, and just saying, you know, what can I do versus what can't I do? That was my big thing. And little by little, I was moving things out of the can't column into the can column because I was at least trying it and seeing how I can adapt it and figure it out.
Right.
Fast forward to May of last year, and I tried CrossFit. And that was probably the best decision I made. Here I am. But what was cool about CrossFit, it built my traps to the point where I'm stable.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that issue anymore. I think because I have a stronger foundation. Now, certain things still bother my head. You know, like
Gets
weird,
like vertigo every now and then.
yeah,
like that,
certain
but-
things don't. I mean, I do burpee over bar, and that screws up with me.
Well, it would
sometimes.
make sense that if you don't have a foundation for your head to sit on, that you need to strengthen
Yeah.
the foundation, right?
And now there's few things that I don't like to do, but there's few things that I avoid or I do different versions of them
Right.
to not have discomfort. But now I'm like, look how far I came. Like that's
pretty awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
You know, and I've actually I'm in a lot of groups on Facebook for both EDS and Chiari, and they're all like, holy shit, like I could do that too.
Yeah.
Or some, you know, there's one group that's specifically for athletes with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And different variants of it. And I always post, you know, I'll post pictures
That's
from
the hypermobile, so basically hypermobile. Yeah.
And that's probably the thing that affects me more now than my Chiari because it, you know, they all kind of work together,
Sure.
I think. And there's one woman in there who's always like, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I'm always like, but why? But it inspired her to like, she now does karate and like broke her first board the other day.
There you go.
You know, and it's such an inspiring snowball effect. Like I see someone do something and I'm like, I want to do that. And then someone sees me do something and they want to do it. So it taught me to be, not only to be patient, I'm more patient now than I think I used to be. I always wanted to do something faster, or quicker, or better.
Yeah.
And while I still want to do that, I respect that. Look where I came from and how long it took me.
Yeah.
And it took me 5 years.
Patience is huge when it comes to surgeries, injuries, psychology of it. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's positive thinking. Like, I know some people who get in a rut and are like, well, I got this now, I can't do anything. And plenty of people have what
That'll
I have.
snowball too, yeah.
It's terrible.
I think what's cool about what you're doing and like why people find it so inspirational is because it's opening doors that otherwise were closed to them. So you think about even, you know, the 4-minute mile. It was impossible to run a 4-minute mile until somebody did it, and now everybody can run a 4-minute mile because it's like, oh, what is actually possible? What are you able to do?
Yeah.
And it takes certain people, and I think that's a quality you can't teach, it takes a certain person to be the person that goes first or tries something first. Like you said, you're like, I'm trying all these different things and moving things from the can't column into the can column. And that's a certain trait that you have that not a lot of people have. So people who don't have it derive inspiration and such from people like yourself. So it's good. You know what I mean? It's good. Though. It creates, that attitude is contagious.
Yeah.
Whether it's spoken about or it's said or it goes completely unsaid, it's something that people will connect with.
And it's hard for me to relate to people who are just like, woe is me, I can't do it. That's not my mentality.
Yeah.
And it's hard because there's plenty of people in those groups too that are just like, I'm depressed, I can't do anything. Because that's contagious. And it's infectious, and it can completely materialize into this like rut that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
And I think I was in that for a little bit. Because you were like, my life is changing. And some people don't adapt to change well either.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you're like, well, now what am I going to do? Like, how can my life did change. I went from being able to run a little, and I look back on it, I'm more appreciative now what I can do than before. Before my surgery, it was almost like a twisted blessing. Because prior to that, I'd say, I hate running. I'm never going to run. Running sucks. I'm not going to do it. Running still sucks. But now when I can do it without pain or anything, I'm like, I just ran a 5K. This is awesome.
Yeah,
or I did a 15K.
Be able to do that.
Yeah. I chose not to do it before. It went from being able to choose not to do it to not being able to do it at all because of limitation.
Yeah.
So it turned into what?
Like you don't miss it till it's gone.
Yeah. And I when I couldn't, my doctor told me, he's like, you'll never be able to lift heavy or run. That's what he said to me. Like straight up, like, don't lift anything heavy. I'm like, well.
Proving you wrong, dog. Just back squatted 175, yo.
For 6.
For 6.
And I deadlifted 210 for 8 the other day. Man. Like by all means, I'm not saying don't listen to your doctor at all.
Yeah, skip all the medical advice.
I'm totally not saying that.
Yeah.
But in move in small increments. Don't just jump the gun.
Right. But keep moving.
Yeah, and keep progressing and keep believing that you can do more than you think you can. Because if you told me 2 years ago, like, you're going to be able to lift 255 pounds in a deadlift, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even humanly possible.
Yeah.
And now I see, okay, I'm learning, I'm progressing, I'm getting stronger. And it's not only made me a better athlete or whatever. I've never even considered myself an athlete, I guess, until recently-ish. But it's made me appreciate more what I can do and makes me like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
How much further can I go?
Right.
And it kind of changes your mindset. So while having a shitty situation kind of cloud how you feel about life and it can make you feel negative for a period of time, I think once you get out of that rut, it actually makes you a better person and it makes you look at life a little differently. And granted, it wasn't a near-death experience. It could have materialized pretty badly. People have died from Chiari, and people have died from, the cyst in their spine bursting, or they have issues like that. And so knock on wood, never got to that point. Yeah. But I think I recovered well because I let myself recover well.
Yeah.
I allowed myself to say, this doesn't define who I am. I'm in the driver's seat, not my condition. I might have a couple hurdles or speed bumps along the way. I might be taking the longer route to get to wherever I want to be, but I'm still driving.
But you're going to get there.
And I'm still driving.
Yeah.
Like, I refuse to let that thing. And I think a lot of people have that problem. They have an injury. They have a condition. They have something negative that's clouding their ability to get to a goal. Because that doubt, that negativity, that's what's driving, not you.
Yep.
So
it's identity. It's what you're going to identify with.
Yeah.
Are you going to identify
with failing?
Are you going to identify with, oh, this happened to me, like, the woe is me story where you're depressed and I have this condition and I can't do things because I have this, and that's the first thing you tell everybody? Or are you, you have it, but there's more to you than whatever's going on.
Yeah, and I may have to do things differently, and I think that's the other thing too. You have to accept the fact that different is not bad. Yeah. Or modification isn't bad.
Yeah. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different.
your plan, it's your path,
Yeah.
it's your thing. And I think for me, that was a lot for me to take at first. It was like, well, how am I going to modify? I have to modify this because of my head.
Yeah.
This sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not getting the same as everyone else because I can't do this.
Yeah.
And eventually I'm like, fuck that. Like, I'm still here. I couldn't even do this shit 6 months ago, even think about doing it. So even if I'm doing it a little differently, so be it.
That goes into worrying about, I think a lot of times we'll get so wrapped up in comparing ourselves to other people.
Oh, yeah.
And those kinds of thoughts are allowed to happen when you do that.
Yep.
You know, but like you said, if you think about, well, where have I been in the last 6 months, or what's my path to this? You know, it's like, holy shit, man, I'm progressing. I'm doing all this stuff. Like, it's crazy that I'm able to do what I'm doing right now. You know, so not comparing yourself in those situations to other people too.
And I think
is a big one.
That's made me mentally strong as a quote unquote athlete.
Yeah. Or just as an individual.
Yeah, because I think it makes me like, I'll see something on the board. Guaranteed, if I saw something on the board as a workout, before I did CrossFit, before my surgeries, I'd be like, I don't want to do that today. I'll do something else.
Probably.
Now I'm like, you know what? It's gonna suck, but I couldn't do that. So I'm grateful that I can do it. So let's do it. Like, what the hell? I mean, I'm in. Let's do it. So I think my perception on the level of suck has changed.
What you're willing to endure.
Yeah, because I'm like...
Because otherwise you wouldn't. You know?
You know what? As much as it's going to suck, if I didn't do this, then I might not have been able to do this. Or maybe it's going to suck and I'm going to have to stop, or I'm going to do something different. It makes me think, if I don't stop and I keep pushing myself, that's a new level that I'm going to get to today that I wasn't there yesterday. And I think because I had to do that with trial and error with my surgery, it made me think, it's made me stronger mentally as just in anything. It makes me push a little more to make myself better.
Yeah. That happened. I had a back injury, and it wasn't nearly as severe as what you're talking about, but along the same lines. I hurt my back, and I was probably, not at 100% for a good 8 months. Like, not being able to put socks on, barely being able to put pants on. Like, my girlfriend at the time, she basically dressed me, did everything, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I would go into the gym and I'd be, smiling and happy and this and that, and not be able to do even 1% of what I could otherwise do. But I would always make sure that I kept a positive outlook. And anybody who asked me, I was always having a good day, all that kind of stuff. Even if I wasn't, I was fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that allowed me, I think, with my mindset of being in that, positive psychology sort of realm, to not allow myself to get into that woe is me category and lick my wounds and be depressed and pissed off at the world.
And some days are going to suck.
Kind of stuff. Yeah, even if I was lying to myself, that's what I was going to say. Even on days where I was like, yeah, I'm having a great day, I feel good, or blah, 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 but inside I'm having the shittiest day ever, and I'm pissed, and I don't want to talk to people, or blah, 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 I was kind of faking it till I made it, and eventually it worked. Eventually it happens, and eventually I was able to get, one thing done, 1% progression each day, and something along those lines, and then eventually you come out of it, But had I not done that, my back would still be hurt. It would still be hurt. I'd still not be doing shit. I'd be upset. I'd be depressed. And all that stuff kind of snowballs. So I think even if, mindset in this is so big, and carrying mindset out of injury, and I think people who just in general go through some shit in their life, whatever it is. Obviously, you don't want somebody to go through something, traumatic.
Yeah, but I think everyone needs to go through something to grow.
But people have something, and you can either grow from it, like you just said. You can either grow from it, or you can let it control you. And either, you're going to grow, you're going to be able to teach somebody about it. You're going to be support for someone who's going through it, like addiction or, abuse or something like that, or an injury or anything. And you can make it productive, or you can, be depressed, or identify in this horrible state of mind.
That's the
victim
difference.
Or a victor. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of times with things like you had said, sometimes people die from what I have, and I think in that realm, the people who, and this could be like more of a spiritual aspect that I kind of draw to, is like you didn't die for a reason. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you didn't, like you were able to, like you were given these tools of the mindset and the properties and abilities to, you know, forge through this injury for a reason, whereas some people don't inherently have that ability, you know. And so what's great about what you're doing is you're open about what happened to you, you're open about all this stuff, and you're doing it, you're in these chat rooms and whatnot, and you're helping other people through it. I think that's a big thing, is when we have something that happens to us, and this is what happened to me too, I started thinking about, well, you know, I had this back injury, this sucks, but maybe there's something along here that I can do to help somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I kind of took that approach, like, you know, how can I use what's happening to me, help somebody else? And that gave me a little bit more of a purpose and a little bit more of a reason to, like, pretend to be happy or this or that, and kind of get better. You know, so I think service of others is a big draw for, you know, those types of things. So someone who's depressed or someone who's upset or someone who's, you know, identifying with this injury or this thing that they have going on in their life, like, think about, you know, one, what got you there, what happened, what can you control, and, you know, what can you get from it for other people? You know, why are you going to be the one who survives? Why? Yeah. You know, why are you going to be the one who doesn't? You know what I mean? And I think... And
a lot of it's resilience, I think. I think a lot of it's having a good support system is helpful.
That's a big one, too. Yeah. There's a lot of X factors in there, obviously. But one big one that I think is, you know, you got to look at the reasoning behind these sort of things. You know, like if you had this injury or something and you just like let it go to waste, essentially, you know, it wouldn't affect you. It wouldn't be as empowering to you and to other people as it is. But I think, you know, you're the kind of person who's not going to let that happen. So, you know, that's why you are, you know, basically given the ability to be on the path that you're on. You know? And I think,
and I guess as like a final note, like it's funny that I had...
Let's wrap up.
Yeah.
It's
been a while.
Gotta go.
I think, you know, like I said, having a support system, well, that's great. And I think it's helpful, but at the same time, it depends on who you are as an individual. And like, I went back to school 2 days after surgery.
Yeah.
That
was the other thing that popped in my head. Think about, like, you're going into brain surgery and studying.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts, dude.
You know,
that's crazy. I'd be like, what's my last meal?
And because I knew, I in my head, I'm like, I'm going to get through this. It's just another step, another notch in the belt that I have to get through.
Yeah.
And then I'll be back in school on Monday.
Yeah.
Granted, I wasn't all there.
Sure.
But I had to be back in that chair Monday, or else I was forfeiting my first year.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to stay on track. I knew I had to stay on my path, and you know, the rest will come. And,
that's awesome.
You know, it's about...
It kind of gives you something to fight for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think everyone has something to fight for.
I think you're right. Everybody does.
Yeah.
Just got to figure out what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. There's a story of this guy, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it was during, I think, was it the Vietnam War? I don't know. It was something, but basically this soldier, I think it was a Vietnamese soldier or something, and he basically got stranded from his platoon, like in the midst of a battle, like ended up, you know, a mile or whatever in the opposite direction, surrounded by nobody, and ended up surviving in the woods on his own for like 5 years or 10 years. It was something along those lines. And he's alone, you know, very like minimal survival skills, blah, blah, blah. But he thinks that he's got to survive, you know, one, because, you know, that's just what humans do. We try to survive. But also because of all these other things going on, like,
it's fight or flight.
He has something to fight for. He had something to, you know, keep himself going. Turns out the war was over when he got out and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, but it's like you have something driving you. Like, you had law school. You're like, dude, I'm in. Like, I have something to be dedicated to.
I also didn't want to spend another $20,000.
Well, that's the other side.
Lose $20,000 and have to pay another $20,000.
Calling up Sally Mae.
Jeez. Stupid student loans. I knew I'd circle back.
Back to that. Jesus. Yeah. But cool. Well, thanks for sharing with us, man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else that wants to be on, team.movement33@gmail.com. Let me know. We'll try to get one of these out a week. And thanks. We'll see you again on the next one.